Yoshida is an average, working guy who gets rejected by his attractive boss, but as he's walking back home after getting drunk, he suddenly runs into a teenage girl and is forced to take her in, but he doesn't know she's going to change his life. As a man and woman are sitting at a table, the woman thanks Yoshida for inviting her, so he asks Goto if she would like to come back to his place after this. She blushingly says she doesn't mention this at work, but she's actually seeing someone, and so Yoshida's unrequited love came to an end. Later at a bar, he annoyingly declares that women should just say so if they're seeing someone, so his friend hurriedly tells him to cut it out, but he says he's not done being mad yet. Later, as he's drunkenly walking home, he sees a girl sitting on the street and asks what she's doing outside this late. She says there aren't any trains running, so he asks if she's going to stay here all night. She gets up and unexpectedly asks him to let her stay at his place since she doesn't have anywhere to go tonight, so Yoshida says she can sleep at a karaoke place or an internet cafe. However, she says she doesn't have any money and offers to sleep with him if he lets her stay at his place. Yoshida tells her to not say that, even as a joke, because he's not fine sleeping with a little kid. In that case, she asks him to let her stay over for free. Yoshida takes her to his apartment, but inwardly tells himself to not get involved with her. He'll just kick her out in the morning and it'll all be over. He lies down to sleep and tells the girl to do whatever she wants, so she asks if he's sure he doesn't want to sleep with her, but he tells her to not make him repeat himself since he's not into little kids and doesn't want to be put in prison. She asks what he wants, so he just says miso soup and goes to sleep. The next morning, Yoshida wakes up to see the girl and shockingly asks what a teenage girl is doing in his apartment. So she says she asked him to let her stay here, and he said it was okay. He doesn't remember anything and nervously asks if he assaulted her, but she confirms that he didn't, so he inwardly applauds himself. She makes him miso soup, so Yoshida tells her to just leave now, but she asks if he really doesn't remember anything from last night. As he drinks the soup, she asks if he wanted Goto to make that for him since he was mumbling that name in his sleep. She asks if he wants her to make him feel better, but he says he keeps telling her to stop that, and he's not so far gone that he needs a tiny little teenager to feel better. She starts bragging about her chest size, so he questions why she's trying to seduce him so desperately. She says she's never met a man who's willing to let her stay for nothing in return, but Yoshida pushes her away and asks what her name is. She says it's Sayu, so Yoshida asks for her student ID and sees that she's from Hokkaido. He asks when she left Hokkaido, so she says it was 6 months ago and admits she hasn't told her parents, so Yoshida tells her to get back home. She says she's fine and is sure her parents are happy she's not there. Yoshida asks how she's going to survive if she doesn't want to go home or school, so she says she'll work out a way to stay at somebody else's place. However, Yoshida tells her to insult him because he doesn't have the slightest interest in her body. He asks what she'll do if he kicks her out, so she mutters that she'll find another place to stay. He orders her to start working so that she can make some money and live here, asking if she's just going to go around seducing random guys. He annoyingly says she's a spoiled little brat with no sense of the value of things, wondering why she couldn't have just lived a normal life and been in love with a decent boy her age. He says she's going to do all the chores here first, but they need to work it out for now, since he doesn't want her making a mess of things, and when she's done being a runaway, she can go back home. Yoshida remarks that it's clear she's totally spoiled, so if he doesn't watch his mouth, she might end up staying here for years. He says she can stay here until she stops being a spoiled brat, but the next time she tries to seduce him, he's gonna kick her out. Later at work, Yoshida tells his friend about everything that happened, but the guy hurriedly says that's not good and asks if there's a missing persons report on her. Yoshida admits he hasn't seen a thing, so his friend says he can't just take in a runaway teen without knowing her deal. As Yoshida is walking back home, he remembers how his friend told him to not get too attached and that he should send her back to her parents before it becomes a problem. When he returns to his apartment, Sayu says she's only made miso soup so far, but Yoshida says he brought some bento boxes for them. He sees that she's ironed his clothes and realizes she's better at chores than he'd thought. After they're done eating, he asks for the ashtray, so she says she washed it with the rest of the dishes. Sayu asks why he's going to the patio to drink and reveals that all the other guys smoked without worrying about her. He annoyingly wonders why she's getting all her values from these losers and says he may be a bad person, but those men were total jerks, so she should have standards for herself and for everything else. As he's smoking on the patio, he remarks that being spoiled is part of the reason why she's such a mess, but he's sure there were adults who made it a lot worse. The next morning, Yoshida asks Sayu if she's only been wearing her uniform, so she says that's the only clothes she has. He admits it's still weird to have her being only in her uniform and takes her shopping to buy some new clothes for her as well as a new futon. She embarrassingly says she won't know how to repay him if he does all that, so he realizes that's what's troubling her and frustratingly wonders why a kid thinks like that. He says he's pretty busty so he can't spend his time on chores, but she's doing that for him and it's been a lot easier for him this past week, so that's enough. Later, she happily says the futon is really comfy and she'll sleep great tonight. She teasingly asks if he wants to sleep with her, but he annoyingly reminds her he said he'd kick her out if she tries to seduce him. Later at work, his friend tells him there's a rumor going around that he has a girlfriend since he's going home right at quitting time every day. He's cleaner, his shirts are ironed, his face has more color to it, and he's even doing a better job at work. Yoshida wonders what the hell's up with these people. Later at home, he remarks that she's physically not his type, but Sayu's pretty cute. She can do chores and she's friendly, so why did she come all the way to Tokyo? Yoshida buys some moisturizer for Sayu, and as they're on the escalator, he remembers that she doesn't have a phone either, so she reveals that she left it at home since her old classmates from Hokkaido used to call her a lot, so she threw it into the ocean. He says life's easier with a phone, and he'd want a way to keep in contact with her, but she smilingly says it's fine, so Yoshida remarks that there's something off about her smile, as if she had to force it to appear in a hurry. When they return to his apartment, Sayu asks Yoshida if he even reads all the stuff he buys, so he says he can read them on the weekends and says she can read them too if she has time. He notices something wrong and asks what's up, but she hurriedly assures him it's nothing, so he sees that she's forcing herself to smile again. He says this might not be her home, but she's allowed to be here, and as long as she can keep up her end of the bargain, she can do what she wants here, and should stop lying to him with those smiles. He sits down, so she nervously says she wanted to ask why he's so nice, admitting that he's nicer than anyone she's ever met, so if he wants her to stop smiling when she doesn't want to, she'll do it, but it'll take time. He tells her to raise her standards, so she mutters that nobody's given her so much freedom or choices in her life before. Yoshida starts laughing and says he's looking forward to some good food, so she cheerily agrees. At work, Yoshida tells a girl, Mishima, she hasn't done her job right like an idiot, so they'll have to finish it before the deadline, so she says she'll work on it today. Later, after everyone's gone, he brings her a bento and tells her to head home quickly. As they eat, he says if she'd focused this hard from the start, she wouldn't have had to work overtime. She says he gets mad at her every time, since usually if someone does a bad job too many times, people just give up on them. Yoshida says it's because she really doesn't learn, so she decides to ask him something, and says she was wondering if he got a girlfriend. He reveals that he doesn't have a girlfriend, he just got rejected by Goto. Mishima is shocked to hear that, and tells him to stay strong, but he says he doesn't need her cheap pity. However, she says it's not pity, since if anything, she feels lucky. She says they should go get a beer sometime soon, so he agrees. Later, Yoshida returns home to see Sayu upset with him and apologizes. She says she made some food for him and tells him to make sure to eat it tomorrow. As he's drinking a beer, he remarks that he really does need a way to get a hold of Sayu if something happens. The next day, he goes to buy a phone for her with Hashimoto, saying it's better to just buy one and give it to her instead of asking her. Hashimoto sees that he really likes her and says the design shouldn't matter, but Yoshida reminds him she's a teenage girl. Hashimoto realizes he must want to make her happy if that matters, and suggests that he should really think about how he's going to deal with her going forward, since he might fall for her or she might fall for him. However, Yoshida says that's not happening, since he only likes older women with huge chests, which is honestly pretty based. Later at work, Yoshida keeps checking his watch, so Hashimoto tells him to stop fidgeting, since if he doesn't focus on his work, he'll have to stay late. Goto asks Yoshida if they can talk, so he agrees. Hashimoto gets up to leave and smilingly tells Yoshida getting rejected is only beginning, but he tells him to not be ridiculous. Later at a restaurant, Yoshida says Goto can really gulp a lot of beer at once, so she cheerily says she likes that he doesn't care about her not being a proper lady. As they're eating, Yuta starts blushing, so she asks if he's nervous. He says he's wondering why the woman who rejected him asked him out for dinner, so she decides to get him to relax by asking some questions. In that case, Yoshida asks why she invited him here, so she asks if he's dating someone. When he says he isn't, she doesn't believe him, saying he always puts work first and never cares about working late, but all of a sudden, he starts clocking out right at quitting time, and he's taking care of his appearance a lot more. She mutters that he's been oddly close with Mishima lately, questions if she's suggesting that he's dating Mishima. He says he's been working at this company for 5 years, and he's always only been in love with her, so he still feels the same way. He asks why she even cares when she turned him down, so she mutters that it bothers her that he got taken by another younger girl so fast. Yoshida confirms that there's nothing going on between him and Mishima, so she smilingly says that was all. Yoshida says he thought it was something more important, so she says it is important and decides to let him ask her a question. In that case, Yoshida asks what her chest size is, so she smilingly says they're I cups, surprising him. Later on the train, Yoshida wonders why Goto asked him out for dinner, since she's not the type to suddenly take an interest in a guy she rejected. When he arrives home, Sayu asks why he looks sad, and if something happened, so he initially says it's nothing but reveals that he went to a restaurant with Goto. Sayu hugs him to make him feel better, so he admits it did do that. She tells him to go take a bath and forget about all the other things. When he returns from the bath, she makes him miso soup, so he drinks it and takes out her phone. She asks if she can really have it and cheerily says she likes the white case. They decide to add each other, and Yoshida remembers what Hashimoto said, remarking that it's impossible for him to fall for her since she may be a girl, but she's still just a kid to him. She sees that he's her only friend and warmly says this is just for him. As Yoshida is smoking on the patio, he remarks that she wasn't forcing herself to smile or trying to make him feel better, and it felt like she was up to something, so he admits he doesn't get teenage girls. As Yoshida is about to leave for work, he tells Sayu her hair is sticking out from the back, so she blushingly tells him to let her know earlier if that happens again. After he leaves, she wonders why he doesn't touch her since he only makes her do chores, which means there's nothing in it for him. At work, Yoshida asks Mishima if she will be able to fix it today, so she swears that she will. A coworker comes to sit down with them and asks Yoshida if he has a girlfriend. He doesn't want to leave since he turned down a business vacation. However, he says there's another reason and says he's expecting a package sometime in the next 2 weeks. After the coworker leaves, Mishima hits Yoshida on his foot and mutters that she's mad for no reason. Later, as they're leaving, Mishima asks Yoshida to go with her to watch a movie, and he's forced to agree, so he starts leaving and runs into Goto. In his apartment, Sayu wonders what she should do since it's not like she can stay here forever. She believes Yoshida will kick her out when he gets a girlfriend and receives a message from him in which he says he's going to watch a movie with a colleague and will be back late. Later, as Yoshida and Mishima walk out of the movies, they discuss the movie and he asks if she's had a fated encounter, so she starts laughing and confirms that she has, why she doesn't want to let it go. In that case, he tells her to do her best, so she cheerily agrees and hugs him as Sayu watches from afar. When Yoshida returns home, he's surprised to see that Sayu isn't there and hurriedly runs out, wondering if someone kidnapped her. As she's sitting in the park, she remembers Yoshida's expression when Mishima hugged him and remarks that he never looks like that when he's with her at all. She starts crying and shockingly realizes she's jealous, so she admits she's a real idiot. Mishima approaches Sayu and asks what she's doing here out so late. She decides to stay here until the last train, so Sayu thanks her while Yoshida is running around, looking for her. Mishima dude that asks why she ran away, so she mutters she thinks you need some kind of reason to be nice to someone, and there's someone who's really nice to her at home, but there's something she can't tell them since they'd abandon her if she does. Mishima acknowledges that there are some people out there who you keep thinking about and get obsessed with, so it's better to take action, since even if she does everything she can and it doesn't work out, she can still gain something. She's only going to gain a whole bunch of nothing by doing that, but sure. She tells Sayu to show the person who she is because she thinks they believe in her and she should believe in them too. Sayu admits she's right and decides to go home. Yoshida suddenly finds her and asks what she's doing, so she says she has an explanation. Mishima decides to head home since it feels like they both need to spend some family time together. Later at home, Sayu takes off her clothes and reminds Yoshida she's actually a girl before asking if he wants to sleep with her. He reminds her of what she said, but she frustratingly says all the men she's met wanted to sleep with her. She asks why he lets her stay here when she hasn't given him anything and is causing him a lot of problems. She asks him to sleep with her, but he declines and states that he's not in love with her. He asks if she understands and orders her to get dressed already. They sit down and Yoshida says it's not true that she hasn't done anything for him since he's changed since she came and he's not alone when he goes to sleep, which makes this place much more pleasant, and he started feeling like he should hurry home. He says just having her here has made it a lot more fun hearing, which Sayu starts crying, and Yoshida admits he's just a lonely loser, remarking that he should have said this before since it felt like he was helping her and getting nothing in return. He kept talking about making her into an ordinary teenage girl again, as if he were protecting her. He really believed both of those things, but it wasn't fair to think there wasn't more to it than that. He smilingly asks Sayu if she would help him out and stay here at least until she feels like going home, so she starts crying even harder and asks if that's okay. He tells her to just be here, and that's all he's asking, so she happily thanks him and agrees to stay here since she feels bad for him. Yoshida remarks that it was at that exact moment that they truly started living together. Sayu asks Yoshida to let her get a job, so he agrees since staying in this room all day can't be good for her mental health, and he'd feel better if she gets a job. Sayu starts working at a store where another girl, Asami, asks why she's acting so nice to her when they're both the same age, so Sayu says it's because she's her superior. As they're leaving, Asami learns that Sayu's house is 5 minutes away from here and suggests that she could visit her place soon, but Sayu isn't sure whether her living partner would be okay with that. Asami asks if she has a boyfriend, but she says it's someone she thinks of as her brother who's been helping her out. Asami says she needs to see who this guy is since she's going to visit her place anyway and asks if today's fine. Sayu texts Yoshida that her friend is coming over and at work. Hashimoto learns that Yoshida's told Mishima about Sayu. Later, when Yoshida returns to his apartment, Yuki is surprised to see he's an old dude and says it's a waste. She cheerily asks why the heck a girl is living with a guy who's not her boyfriend when there's no room in this apartment, but she admits she's relieved since he seems like a decent guy. As they sit down, Yoshida tells Asami Sayu cooks the food and does the chores, so she asks what kind of good deeds he did to have a cute girl looking after him. After they're done eating, Asami says this place is really small, so Yoshida says there'll be more room when she leaves. Sayu smilingly sees that they're good friends now before Asami gets up to head home and asks Yoshida to walk her back. He asks why, so she says it's not every day he gets a chance to escort a pretty girl like her. She warns him to not get any weird ideas, so he says he won't in a million years. As they're walking, Asami asks what's going on with him and Sayu since he's the worst liar on the planet, and it's obvious he's making it all up. She cheerily says he can tell her the truth, so he says what she said is true to her. If she sees him as a big brother, there's no need for anyone else to say otherwise. Asami says that's the same as admitting he was lying, so he says he's not persuasive enough to come up with new lies to hide old ones, and he doesn't think it's right for him to talk about things she wants to hide. Ever the gentleman I see. Asami sees that he's surprisingly nice and says Sayu is lucky to have met him. She decides to walk home the rest of the way herself. He asks what happened to him escorting a pretty girl, so she says he'll get his chance another time, and admits she doesn't want him to see her home. He asks her to be Sayu's friend, so she says he's hilarious since he feels like her dad, so he cheerily says he's like a big brother. She decides to give some advice for her guardian and says Sayu is really good at giving different smiles, so he should be careful. After Yoshida finishes his work, he texts Sayu that he's heading home, but Goto suddenly sneaks up on him and asks if he would come with her. At the restaurant, he texts Sayu that Goto asked to go out for dinner, so he won't be home for supper tonight. He asks Goto what is it today since she's brought him out here, so she says he and Mishima look pretty close, even though he said there was nothing going on between him and her last time. She says she's not blaming him for turning down the business trip, but there must be a reason since he never used to play with his phone at work either, but now he's looking at it all the time. Yoshida asks if he can ask something first and questions why she cares what he does, saying he won't answer her if she doesn't answer him. She admits she focuses on him more than other people and says she doesn't want him to be surprised. She blushingly reveals that it's because she likes him, surprising him. Sayu tastes the food and cheerily says it's really good, so she goes text Yoshida about it, but is surprised to see his message, so she just tells him to have fun and mutters that it tastes really good. Meanwhile, Yoshida asks Goto if she's kidding and reminds her that she said she's been seeing someone since 5 years. She admits that was a lie and reveals that she wanted to jump for joy when he told her he liked her, but she thought that wasn't the time since, if she agreed back then, it wouldn't have gone well, and so she just kind of said she had a boyfriend. Yoshida doesn't believe her, says this is just her way of making fun of him, so she asks what it would take to have him believe her. He tells her to sleep with him, so she starts blushing, seeing which he says he was kidding. However, Goto admits she hasn't slept with anyone and asks if it's okay. Yoshida starts choking on his drink and profusely apologizes for saying something so stupid. She blushingly says it's not her fault since she never had a chance but really does like him, so if he wants, Yoshida repeats that or repeats just a joke, and they start eating, so Yoshida says he's never going to ask her out again and tells her to date him when the right time comes. He mutters that she never comes out and says something herself anyway. She annoyingly says he doesn't need to make her mad and questions if he really even likes her, so he says he does, and that's why it's so frustrating. Yoshida mutters that it hurts when the person you like makes a mess out of your life, if she really likes him, so it's not fair unless they're on equal footing. She admits that's true and says she's going to propose to him when the time comes. Now that that's done, she asks for an answer to her question. At home, Sayu receives a message from Yoshida, saying he's bringing Goto home and realizes she's going to be abandoned again. She says she's going to leave for a few hours in that case, but Yoshida says Goto actually wants to meet her, leaving her puzzled. When Goto learns that Yoshida is living with a minor, she reminds him that that's illegal and asks to see her, so they get some stuff from a supermarket and head home. Goto warmly introduces herself to Sayu and suggests that they should have some snacks to start off. Goto sees that Yoshida basically picked a girl off the street and let her stay with him and tells Yoshida he's surprisingly bold. Yoshida gets up to go to the bathroom, and Goto tells Sayu she'd like to talk to her in private since she has something she'd want to ask her too, so Sayu agrees and asks Yoshida to get some ingredients for them. Goto asks Sayu some basic questions, but Sayu doesn't answer why she left her home, so Goto says there's something else she absolutely needs to make clear. How long are you going to stay here? As Yoshida is walking, he runs into Mishima and says Sayu asked him to buy some stuff for breakfast, so she cheerily asks if she can come along and shop with him. Goto tells Sayu that teens are special. No matter what she does, she can't be anything but a high school girl right now, so whether she intends to use that label for her own benefit or not, Yoshida might be fine with it, but society won't be. Sayu smilingly thanks her, admitting that she told herself she wanted to run away from everything and just forget, but she thinks what she actually wanted was for someone to tell her not to run away. She says she's stayed with a lot of men since she left home and let them use her body because something inside her just went crazy. She let them use her just to have a place she could stay at for a few nights. However, Yoshida says he wouldn't do anything like that and declared that he'd set her straight. Goto laughs and says she's glad Sayu found a place where she can be safe. Goto says she can take her time, but she should also think about what she'll do next. Sayu mutters that she doesn't want to go to her past, but she knows she can't keep doing this forever, so she'll face her past. Leave here and go back to where she came from. Goto hugs her and says she'll be okay as long as she feels that way, hearing which Sayu happily hugs her back. Yoshida really is the luckiest guy on the planet. As Mishima and Yoshida leave the store, she asks if he'll let her stay at his place tonight. If she asks so, he questions why he has to let someone stay over when they're not his girlfriend. She annoyingly asks if Goto isn't at his place right now. He hurriedly asks how she knows, so she mutters that they were whispering to each other really suspiciously, so she got curious. After that, she just followed them and they were heading to the residential area, so she realized they were both going to his place. She apologizes for following him and says it makes her feel like he's hiding something from her. Goto asks Sayu what questions she has for her, so Sayu questions if she's in love with Yoshida. Goto laughs and asks why he's asking that, so Sayu mutters that it's important to her and to Yoshida as well. Goto admits she's in love with him and isn't interested in anyone else. She says she's been watching him since he came to the company, so Sayu smilingly says she's happy Yoshida will get the girl he loves. Mishima and Yoshida sit down and she asks if he still likes Goto, so he admits he couldn't give up on her that fast. In that case, Mishima says what he's doing doesn't make sense since he's letting her and a random teenager be in the same room, which is weird. He admits that's true but asks if she's trying to say he should kick Sayu out. She says that's not it, she's just asking where his priorities lie. If she were him and she really wanted to date Goto, she'd hide Sayu. Yoshida says he'd have to kick Sayu out if he did that, so she says she knows that and wonders if his feelings towards Sayu are changing. However, she says he's just too nice, and when he's too nice, he won't get the things he really wants. Mishima decides to go home since she's likely to say something she shouldn't if he stays here any longer. Yoshida returns to see Goto applying makeup on Sayu and they both laughingly tease him. As he's walking Goto back, she says Sayu is a good girl and tells him to not try anything with her, so he says he won't. Goto asks him to watch over her, so he says he wouldn't let a teenage girl stay at his place if he wasn't serious about taking care of her. Goto says there's no telling what feelings might suddenly bubble up out of Sayu, but he'll be okay no matter what happens. She reveals that the higher-ups at work call him the problem solver since he always goes out of his way to get involved with the biggest problems. She assures him she's cheering for him, so he smilingly thanks her. As Sayu enters the store, she notices a name Yaguchi Koya and remembers it from somewhere. A guy approaches her and he surprisingly recognizes her as Miyuki. He asks what she's doing here and says he'd hope to see her again, so she mutters that he has the wrong girl, but he says he never forgets a girl he's slept with. He realizes her name wasn't on the chart, so Asami tells him to get out here, and he says he knows this girl. He reveals that her name's Miyuki and she stayed at his place, but Sayu hurriedly says he has the wrong person. Asami kicks him in the foot and tells him to get back out there. Once he leaves, Sayu starts to explain, but Asami says she doesn't need to tell her and assures her she shouldn't tell anyone anything she doesn't want to say. As Sayu is walking home, she's surprised to see Yaguchi waiting for her outside, and he asks if they both know each other really well. When she doesn't answer, he sees that she's still running away, so Sayu starts to walk away, but he grabs her hand and says he's curious about her new place and would love to go there. Sayu declines and says she can't bring someone over without the owner's permission, so he tells her to get his permission since they're not doing anything wrong. She starts walking away, so he says if she takes him home with her, he won't tell the manager or Asami about her past. Sayu starts trembling and asks if he's only going to come over, so he assures her that that's it, because why would an emotionally manipulative jerk lie? She texts Yoshida that she's bringing over someone from work, but they'll be gone before he gets home, so he shouldn't worry about it. At the apartment, Yaguchi is surprised to learn that she's been staying here for 2 months and asks if she's sleeping with the owner, but she says it's not like that, so he says he doesn't understand why a man would let a teenage girl live with him for months. He sits down beside her and says he can't control himself when he's alone with a cute girl, but she pushes him away, so he says that was mean. Yaguchi starts getting aggressive and Sayu starts crying, realizing that Asami won't be her friend anymore and she'll cause problems for Yoshida if he tells everyone the truth, so she stops struggling, admitting that she can't let that happen. However, Yoshida suddenly barges in and asks Sayu if he can kick Yaguchi out, so she nods. Yoshida throws him out and asks what the hell he thinks he's doing, so Yaguchi says he should take her up on the offer of sleeping with her. He asks if Yoshida is going to take care of her forever. He reminds Yoshida he's not Sayu's dad, so Yoshida remarks he knows that and wonders if it's wrong to save her anyway. He says he doesn't want to be one of the guys who teaches her wrong things, so Yaguchi mutters that the pities him and starts leaving. Yoshida tells him to stay away from her, so he promises to leave her alone and warns Yoshida it'd be really pathetic if he kicked Sayu out now. Yoshida frustratingly remarks that none of these jerks saved her, they just hurt her more and threw her away. He goes in and tells Sayu it's okay now, so she says she got scared when he tried to sleep with her. Yoshida hurriedly says it's okay and she did nothing wrong. She says she might get him into trouble, but Yoshida says it's his fault and tells her to think about herself more. She tearfully thanks him and agrees to do her best. Later at the store, Asami asks Sayu if something happened with Yaguchi, but Sayu smilingly says nothing happened, so Asami mutters that she hates that about her and asks Yaguchi if he did something to Sayu yesterday. After learning that he asked to sleep with Sayu, Asami angrily punches him in the face and says it's awful to hurt someone who's already hurt. She orders him to apologize to her, so he hurriedly complies and admits to Sayu he got a little rough. Sayu asks why he didn't tell Asami about them, so he reminds her that he promised to not tell anyone. She laughingly says he's pretty weird and says she doesn't feel mad anymore, even though she's not ready to forgive him for yesterday. As Asami and Sayu are walking home, she receives a message from Yoshida saying he'll be late today, so Asami decides to stay over and protect her, but she asks to go to her house first so that she can get her things. Sayu is surprised by how big Asami's house is, so she says her parents are pretty rich and reveals that this is actually the first time she's shown someone her house. As they're walking, Sayu tells her she ran away from home and got here by staying at different guys' places, but when she met Yoshida, he was really nice to her, and after she met Asami, she finally finally understood how idiotic she was being. Later, they stare at the stars together, and Asami admits her parents never have the time for her and want her to become a lawyer, but she wants to become an author, so Sayu happily says she'll cheer her on. She tells Sayu she's had a hard past and struggles to keep going, but it's okay to take a break every once in a while, hearing which Sayu tearfully hugs her. Later, when Yoshida returns home, he apologizes to Sayu for not being able to protect her, but she hurriedly assures him he protected her and that's why he can start to think about her future. Thus, she asks if he can let her stay for a little longer, so he smilingly pats her on the head and says he'll do everything he can to help her focus on the future and go back to her old life. Sayu happily hugs him and welcomes him home. Asami asks Sayu if Yoshida's replied about her coming over, so they say that he said it's fine, but she's been coming over practically every day. Asami cheerily says they are soulmates. She sees a car outside and says she's noticed it there for a while, but they never come in to buy anything and just leave after a few minutes. Later at home, Sayu is helping Asami study when she wonders what she'll do about her future. Asami asks what's up, so she cheerily says she was thinking of what to cook for dinner. At work, Yoshida gets a message from Sayu and Mishima annoyingly notices him smiling, so she admits she's jealous since she doesn't even have his number. After that, she notices Goto talking to him and asks her if she'd like to go have lunch with her. During lunch, Goto asks Mishima what she wants to talk about, so she asks what she thinks about Yoshida. Goto starts laughing because of how serious Mishima looks and says he's looking better lately, so Mishima asks if she knows. Goto confirms that she's talked to Sayu, so Mishima asks if she's not worried that Sayu might take him, so Goto says you can't control other people's feelings no matter how hard you try, bud. Even if she was to interfere and change his feelings, how long would their relationship last? Mishima angrily says she's much more scared of losing things because she never even tried to get it, but Goto annoyingly tells her she's being too loud, so she sits down. Goto suggests that it'll be better to just wait, so Mishima asks if she doesn't love Yoshida. Goto admits she does, which is why she thinks anything she did wouldn't matter. Later, as Yoshida is leaving, he receives a message from Sayu saying dinner tonight's something special. Mishima approaches him and asks if he wants to go watch a movie, so he says Sayu is making something special for dinner tonight. In that case, Mishima asks for his contact info instead since he's given it to Goto and Sayu, so he warily agrees and asks what she plans to use it for. He says he can understand wanting it from someone who talked to her a lot, but he doesn't send messages without any purpose, and even if someone sends him one, he wouldn't be able to reply with anything fun. Mishima says it's not right to decide everything by his own standards and questions how she's supposed to feel when she's taken the phone from his hands. She bursts out she loves him and texts him, asking if she can ask him to go watch a movie sometime again, so he agrees. At home, Yoshida sees that Sayu's made katsudon and says it's good. The next morning, he sees that Sayu seems to be more into cleaning than usual, so she says she's been busy with work and hasn't managed to clean out all the little corners. He decides to help too, but she hurriedly stops him and says that's her job. He goes to take a bath and tells her to do that too since her hair's a mess. As he's bathing, she asks if she can check the closed box in the closet, so he tells her to go ahead. She surprisingly finds a school album inside and sees a girl with him, so she asks if she's his girlfriend when he comes out. He says one could say that Sayu says she's really pretty. He reveals that she was the senpai everyone admired, so she sees that he's really into older women. Yoshida remembers how she told him he was clingy once and says when you're close to someone, you want to see them smile all the time. As he gets up to smoke, she blushingly asks what he thinks of her, but he doesn't hear her, so she hurriedly says she was just telling him he can't smoke indoors. At the store, Yaguchi sees that the car is back and surprisingly sees that the person is actually coming to buy something this time. A man steps out and Sayu hurriedly hides behind the counter, so Yaguchi asks if it's someone she doesn't want to see. She nods, so he tells her to get into the office. The man enters and says he's looking for a girl named Ajiwara Sayu, but Yaguchi says he's never heard that name and asks if he's sure she doesn't work at a different store. In the office, Asami is surprised to learn that Sayu's brother is here, and Sayu remarks that she's not ready to go back to that house. Yaguchi says she can come out now, so she thanks him for helping her, but he says he just doesn't like guys who think they can use that power to control other people's lives. However, he says the guy's serious, so she might not be able to stay on the run for much longer. Sayu admits he's right and remarks that she thought she'd be able to decide when she would go back home, but that's not the case at all. As Sayu is walking back, she realizes she'll have to go back home now and receives a message from Yoshida, saying it looks like he'll be working late today. As Sayu walks out of a supermarket, Mishima says it's impressive that she's able to do so many chores and reveals that she came to see a movie. Sayu suddenly hides behind her and says someone's looking for her, but they haven't looked here yet, so Mishima decides they should get out of here and assures Sayu she can trust her. They head to a karaoke bar and Sayu says she was thinking of telling Yoshida, but she isn't sure what to say. Mishima decides to message him instead, so Sayu gratefully thanks him. Yoshida is surprised to see that message while Mishima asks Sayu if she's some sort of criminal. Sayu hurriedly says she's not, so Mishima tells her she won't ask for specifics since Yoshida told her most of it. However, she tells Sayu she doesn't have a lot of time now that they're here. Sayu says she understands, so Mishima asks why she's out shopping if that's the case. Sayu says the deal is that she can stay at Yoshida's apartment if she does the chores, so she has to keep up with them. Mishima warns her she's got bigger problems and asks if she can still get by if she and Yoshida are suddenly torn apart from each other. It's not like Yoshida's a substance she's addicted to. Mishima mutters that a girl as young as Sayu might not be able to understand this, but some people she can only meet now and some things she can only do now. She tells Sayu she needs to think seriously about what she wants to do now. Yoshida suddenly enters, so Mishima tells him they came here to chat after they ran into each other in front of the station. Yoshida asks if they're done having fun and tells Sayu they should head home now. annoying Mishima, who smilingly says stay here since she feels like singing some more. Yoshida tries to pay up, but she says it's fine, so he says he'll take her out to watch a movie, and she cheerily says that's better. After he leaves, Mishima starts crying and mutters that it's not fair since he never looks at her the way he looks at Sayu, even though she loves him too. As they're walking, Sayu sees that the summer festival is tomorrow, and Yoshida says they can go if she wants. The next day, as they're walking to the summer festival, Yoshida says he's glad they were able to rent a yukata for her. She notices that he isn't looking at her and asks if she's pretty, so he confirms that she is. She asks if she looks prettier than Goto, but hurriedly tells him to forget about it before they notice some kids with cotton candy. They get some for her, and Sayu holds his hand so that they don't get separated. As they're watching the fireworks, he smilingly says he didn't realize this kind of festival was so close to home. He remarks that he'd never have come here without Sayu and thinks about all the stuff he wouldn't have done if he hadn't met her. He suddenly realizes he's not holding her hand anymore and looks around to find Sayu behind him. She says she told him she was going to throw out the trash. She asks if he thought she had disappeared, so he admits he'd freak out if she suddenly vanished. He asks if she's really going home, but tells her to just forget about it. When the fireworks ends, Sayu reveals that she gave a different name to every guy she met on her way here. She gave them a fake name each time and kept moving, but when he asked for her name, her real name slipped out of her mouth. She asks if he doesn't want her to go home, so Yoshida smilingly says he thinks she should go home, so she agrees and says she won't need to run away anymore thanks to him. The next morning, someone rings the doorbell to their home, so Yoshida warily gets up. He opens the door to see the man from before, who introduces himself as Ajiwara Issa and says he's come to bring his sister Sayu home, shocking her. Issa tells Sayu to come home since she should know she can't stay here, but she declines and says she's not ready. He questions how long she's going to keep acting like a child and asks what she'd do if somebody with bad intentions takes her in. She mutters that Yoshida is a good person, but he says adults aren't like kids and can pretend to be good people all they want, so Sayu declares that Yoshida isn't like that and tells him to not use him against her. A while later, Issa sits down, and after confirming that they haven't anything appropriate, he thanks Yoshida for taking Sayu in. He tells her their mother is worried, but she doesn't believe their mom would be looking for her and asks what the real reason is. Issa reveals that her teacher has come looking for her several times since she left, so the school now thinks they've had her locked in their house. Yoshida realizes what she's worried about is what other people will say, so Issa says he doesn't think that's the case, but he can't definitely say she's put much thought into it. He tells Sayu it'd be hard for her to keep running away, so Yoshida asks for a few days since it was like Sayu needs some time to think. After Issa leaves, Sayu tells Yoshida she feels really weak now that the time has come for her to go back home, so he says he's scared too, but she shouldn't worry. She goes to talk to Issa, and he says there aren't a lot of people who would take another child in out of pure goodwill, so she agrees. He says he was worried about what might have happened to her, but he feels a little better since Yoshida genuinely seems to be worried for her. He reveals that their mother's been really hurt since she left and has gotten more unstable. Sayu mutters that after running away, she felt alone no matter how much she ran, but when she met Yoshida, he taught her how stupid she had been, and that opened her eyes to her idiocy. After that, she started thinking about her future and what she would do after going back home, so Issa sees that she's changed too since she speaks her mind more than before. He says he can buy her a week at most by convincing their mom he hasn't found her yet, so she should take that week to think. Later, Asami visits Yoshida's apartment and learns about what happened. Yoshida mutters that Issa reacted to Sayu's decision with more respect than he had expected before Sayu decides to tell them about her past. She reveals that she never got along with her mother, which was a big reason she lost all motivation after starting high school. She didn't care about schoolwork, socializing, or making friends, and she was fine with being left alone, but that changed when she met a girl named Yuko Masaka. In a flashback, Sayu and Yuko are eating lunch together on the school rooftop when Yuko asks why Sayu always looks so cool, leaving her confused. Eventually, a group of girls began bullying Yuko, and when Sayu asked why, Yuko explained that one of the bullies liked a boy on the basketball team and believed Sayu had rejected him, so bullying her was their way of targeting Sayu. Yuko added that because Sayu was attractive and didn't seem like a bad person, it was harder for people to spread lies about her, which is why Yuko took most of the bullying. The bullies even called her Sayu's groupie. But Yuko denied it, saying Sayu was her first real friend. Time passed, and one day Sayu overheard girls in the bathroom bragging about teaching someone a lesson. Realizing they meant Yuko, she hurriedly rushed in and found her drenched in a stall. Sayu decides to confront the bullies, but Yuko stops her, so Sayu holds her hand and promises they would face things together. Yuko comfortingly hugs her, but looking back, Sayu admits this was the biggest mistake of her life. A while later, Sayu shockingly saw Yuko standing on the rooftop. Yuko mutters that when she first saw Sayu, she thought she was really pretty, but Yuko wasn't very smart, so she got close to her anyway, and when she talked to her, she was just an ordinary cute girl. She admits she turned the solitary and beautiful Sayu into a stupid girl who hangs out with a loser like her. She tells Sayu she can shine brighter and mutters that Sayu has stopped smiling lately since all she's thinking about is protecting her. Sayu insists that she's her friend, but Yuko tearfully tells Sayu this isn't her fault, so she should keep on smiling. She suddenly jumps off, shocking Sayu collapses. After Yuko's death, reporters swarmed the Ajiwara home. When Sayu met her mother in the dining room, her mother scolded her over the incident, so Sayu apologized. But when her mother bluntly asked if she killed Yuko, she angrily said they were friends and decided to leave home. Her brother Issa stopped her, but he understood that she needed to get away, so he later drove her to Saikawa Station. Before she left, he gave her an envelope with 300,000 yen, telling her to stay in a hotel and call him if anything happened. Sayu thanked him and left, but the money ran out quickly. She started to feel lonely and even felt like Issa had helped her out of pity, so she cut ties with him. A while later, she met a man who took her in and she thought it was out of kindness. But after a while, he pressured her into sleeping with him and she gave in. Sayu admits it was really stupid of her and explains that from then on, she stayed with different men in exchange for sleeping with them until she eventually met Yoshida. After hearing everything, Asami and Yoshida step out onto the balcony to talk. They discuss Sayu's story and what Yoshida should do next. He says he doesn't want to get involved in her family problems and thinks she should return home, but Asami asks what he wants to do about her. During lunch at work, Yoshida tells Hashimoto and Mishima will soon be going back home. Hashimoto tries to cheer him up, but he notices how down Yoshida looks. Yoshida admits that ever since Sayu ran away, he figured her parents probably weren't great. Hashimoto points out that at least her brother seems to care, and Yoshida admits that's true, so Hashimoto advises him not to dig any deeper into her family matters. That night, Yoshida finds Issa waiting outside his apartment, so they both walk to a park and sit on a bench. Issa apologizes for the harsh things he said before, but Yoshida brushes it off, and they start talking about the first time Yoshida met Sayu. Issa admits Yoshida might be the first person in a parental role that Sayu has ever truly liked and thanks him for taking care of her. Yoshida says he didn't do anything, so Issa asks him to please continue to be by her side since there are only few days left, so he agrees. When Yoshida returns home, Sayu acknowledges the trouble she's caused them both and admits she's scared of going back home, but she understands that it's something she has to do, so she's going to make sure to get ready. The next day, Mishima overhears Yoshida and a colleague talking about how they had to stay late at work. At home that evening, Sayu gives Yoshida a notebook filled with handwritten recipes so he won't have to rely on convenience store meals, and Yoshida smilingly thanks her. The next day, Hashimoto invites Yoshida to lunch, but he declines, saying he's too busy, so Hashimoto tells him to take some breaks and not just be a dumb working-class loser. That night, after dinner, Sayu takes Yoshida to the hill Asami took her to. She remembers what Asami told her and says she will always have her past of being a runaway no matter what anyone says. She says she'd have kept making these mistakes if she hadn't met him, and says she's really happy when she's with him, so she tried to leave a bunch of times while he was at work this week. However, she couldn't do that because she wants to stay here forever, but if she does that, she'll never put an end to her past. She tearfully says meeting him what she'll take back home. She asks him to be there to cheer on, so Yoshida starts crying too and promises he will. The next day in the company break room, Hashimoto, Mishima, and Yoshida discuss Sayu leaving, and Hashimoto suggests Yoshida spend the remaining time with her, while Mishima proposes he follow her to Hokkaido. Yoshida refuses, saying that would be strange, but Mishima points out that everything he's done for Sayu so far has been strange. Yoshida worries about missing work, but Mishima assures him it would be fine, and Hashimoto agrees. Yoshida insists Sayu wants to face her problems alone, and his interference wouldn't help, but Mishima argues that his support would matter regardless. He gets a call from Asami, who says Sayu isn't answering her phone, so Hashimoto immediately tells Goto that he and Yoshida aren't feeling well and need to leave early, and Goto agrees, so Mishima offers to finish Yoshida's work. On the drive, Hashimoto and Yoshida talk about Yoshida's feelings for Sayu, and Hashimoto points out that Yoshida's been thinking about her constantly and accuses him of distracting himself with work instead of spending time with her before she leaves. Goto then calls, and they soon arrive at Yoshida's apartment, where Goto, Asami, and Sayu are waiting before they realize Sayu had simply gone to visit Yoshida's workplace and walk home with him. That night, Sayu asks if she can sleep in Yoshida's bed since it's her last night there, so he agrees. Lying in bed, she notices how close they are physically the first time and promises she won't do anything inappropriate. She then clings to his back and asks if she would have been a normal girl if he had been her father. Yoshida says he's not her father, just someone who let her stay in his apartment, and Sayu agrees. Yoshida reveals that he's going to go with her to Hokkaido, surprising her. He explains that she might feel lonely traveling alone, so he'll go with her to meet her mother, hearing which Sayu tightly hugs him and gratefully thanks him. In the parking lot outside Yoshida's apartment, Asami warmly hugs Sayu goodbye and tells Yoshida to take good care of her. During the flight, Yoshida sits next to Sayu and covers her with a blanket as she's sleeping, so Issa says Yoshida even used his vacation time for her. Yoshida says part of his reason was to support her so she could be brave, and the other part was how she spent more time in his place than anywhere, so he thinks he has a duty to explain it to her family. Issa admits he has no idea if their mother will believe his explanation, but given Sayu's mental state, it's a big help. Sayu wakes up and asks if Yoshida is really going with her, so Yoshida jokingly cheerily says the plan's already in the air. Issa tells him that once they get there, they'll have a bit of a drive, so if he wants, he can turn back at the airport, but Yoshida flatly refuses and says he'll go with them. He reminds Sayu he said he'd watch out for her until the end. After landing, they meet a driver and Issa says they'll go to Sapporo by car. Yoshida asks if they don't live in Azahikoa, so he says there's a branch of his company there and he wants to drop in quickly. He asks if they can kill some time by themselves, so Sayu agrees. They stop at a cafe, and Sayu admits she's never been inside one before. They order their drinks and she's watching some girls chatting outside. Sayu recalls that her mother used to punish her if she came home late after school so she couldn't hang out with girls her age. When she ran away, she often saw other kids her age relaxing in cafes and realized that it was a normal thing for teens to do. She's kind of happy she got to do a cafe with them for no real reason. Yoshida asks if she's afraid of going home, so she admits she is, but says that's why she's grateful he's with her. Later, Issa says this was a personal errand and asks Sayu if he should head straight home, but she says she'd like him to stop at one place first, school. Issa takes them to Sayu's school, and she says she's going inside since there's someplace she wants to visit. She adds that she wants Yoshida to come with her since she's a little scared to go on her own. As they're walking, Yoshida asks if they're not going through the front gate, so she says this place doesn't have any security, but there are cameras around the front gate. She says they're sneaking in right now, but they're not doing anything bad. She's relieved to see that the hole in the fence hasn't been fixed yet, and says the door up ahead has a busted lock so they can easily get inside. As they're walking, Yoshida asks if it's fine that they're trespassing since he could be in trouble if they get caught. She says nobody would go to a school in the countryside this late, and he's already done something way sketchier, so he admits that's true. In the building, she says she wants to go to the rooftop, but they see that the door is locked, so she climbs out through a nearby window. Yoshida sees that this is the place that changed Sayu's life. Her hands start trembling, and she embraces Yoshida. She suddenly remembers Yuko and slowly walks towards a bench they used to sit on, but she collapses, so Yoshida asks if she's okay. Sayu says she is and mutters that this is where it all ended and where it all began. She rushes to the fence surrounding the rooftop, angrily wishes it was here sooner. She admits it's her fault Yuko died since she couldn't understand how she felt and thought the right thing to was to fight, but she was wrong. Yoshida notices her hand is bleeding from the metal and tells her it wasn't her fault, but Sayu insists that's not true because she just pretended to care about her but never saw what was really going on with her. However, Yoshida says they would both have been fine it wasn't for the bullying. Sayu says she was the reason it happened, but he declares that it was her decision to approach him. She admired her and wanted to be her friend. He reminds her that she and Yuko were both each other's only friend and cared about each other, but she just cared too much. She tearfully declares that she wanted her to live, but that makes it sound like she's saying it was Yuko's fault. Yoshida declares that that's fine because something went wrong and she couldn't fix it, and it ended up really bad, but even so, it's all in the past now. He warns that if she can't forgive herself, she'll be stuck on this roof forever. Sayu starts crying and Yoshida pulls out a handkerchief to wipe her face as they sit together. Sayu eventually thanks him for coming with her, and she calmly says she'll see Yuko again someday. Hope she doesn't mean what we all think she means. As they leave the school, Sayu offers to buy Yoshida a new handkerchief, but he dismisses it and asks how she's feeling. She admits she's still not okay but is ready to face it. They return to Issa's car and head to the Sayu's house. However, when they enter, Sayu's mother unexpectedly slaps her on the face. Sayu's mother angrily asks where the hell she's been, and says people have spread so many weird rumors because of her. Issa quickly steps in and tells her that's enough because they have a guest. He introduces Yoshida, who took care of Sayu for a long time, and says he asked him to come with them. Sayu's mother doesn't say anything and walks away. Sayu tells Yoshida she's fine and they head in. They all sit down and Sayu's mother asks what she expects to accomplish by running away from home for so long and causing problems for her family. She says she caused no end of problems living here, but they didn't compare to this, so she doesn't understand what Sayu wanted her to do. Sayu mutters that she's not even trying to understand and asks if she remembers what she said to her the day she left. When her mother admits she doesn't, Sayu says that's proof that she doesn't care about her and doesn't even try to understand her. Her mother annoyingly says she hasn't been home 5 minutes yet and she's already complaining. She asks if Sayu ran away just to spite the family, but Sayu says she just wanted to get away from her, from a mother who didn't even try to understand her and who told him that she thought she had killed her only friend. Her mom asks what she thought running away would accomplish, since even after running away, there was nothing she could do on her own. Yoshida remarks that it was her only choice, and it was her mom who made it that way. Her mom adds that then she ended up staying at a strange man's house. She annoyingly asks Sayu why she brought him here and questions how much she's trying to embarrass him. Sayu says Yoshida came here for her, so her mom angrily tells Yoshida this isn't his problem since he's not part of this family. Issa says that's rude, but she shuts him up. She asks what taking care of her means and points out that he was just letting a teenage girl stay in his house. Issa tries to stop her, but she shuts him up again, so Yoshida agrees and says he lets Sayu stay in his house, fully aware that it was illegal. Sayu's mom asks Issa why he brought Yoshida here and tells Yoshida it doesn't become acceptable just because he knows it's illegal. It just makes him a criminal. Sayu slams her hand down and tells her mom she treats the people she cares about as if they don't matter every single time and insults them without ever listening to them, which is what she hates about her. She defends Yoshida, saying that while she hated herself for running away, he not only gave her a place to stay, but also supported her emotionally like a true Japanese salaryman. Her mother repeats that she never should have given birth to her, hearing which Sayu starts crying. Yoshida tells her he would like to take care of Sayu until she becomes an adult, but points out that it's actually her mother's duty. He gets up and bows, asking her to take responsibility for Sayu. Shocked that a complete stranger would do this, her mother says nothing until Issa also bows in front of her. Overwhelmed, Sayu's mother starts crying, so Issa asks Yoshida if he can leave for now while he takes care of things. Outside, Yoshida admits her words were harsher than he expected and says Sayu should have gotten angry, but she explains she wanted to, yet he became angry first. She starts crying and thanks him, so they both cry and stare up at the sky. Sayu tells him that when he bowed to her mother, she felt forgiven somehow. She holds his hand and says she will be fine on her own now, so Yoshida says he understands and wonders if there will be a day later on in her life when she remembers this. Issa returns and says he spoke with their mother. Sayu can stay home until she graduates, and as long as she causes no trouble, her mother won't bother her. Issa admits Yoshida played a big role in that decision and admits he's frustrated he didn't get on his knees for Sayu first. Yoshida asks to speak to Sayu's mom again, so Issa agrees, and Yoshida goes inside. He apologizes for his earlier anger, but she dismisses it as too late and asks if he really never did anything inappropriate with Sayu. Yoshida says no when she asks why he went so far for her. He says it was because he met her that day. She says she's going to think about their future after they talk and asks him to go back to Tokyo in the morning, so he confirms that he will. After leaving the dining room where he had talked with Sayu's mother, Yoshida sees Sayu standing beside Issa on the stairs. She walks past him and says she wants to speak to her mother next. Inside, Sayu apologizes for all the trouble she has caused and bows, surprising her. Sayu admits that her built-up frustration toward her was why she ran away, even though it caused problems for both her and Issa. She apologizes again and bows once more, but her mother doesn't apologize in return. She remembers her discussion with Yoshida and says it helped change her. She asks directly if her mother really is her only parent, so her mother tearfully says yes. Hearing this, her mother tells her she must finish school, though she will be held back a year, and after graduating, she can live however she wants. When her mother leaves, Sayu quietly thanks her and tells Yoshida it was the first time it ever spoken to her mother. Soundly says he's glad to hear that. That night, Yoshida tries to sleep but finds it difficult. Eventually, Sayu comes in, saying she wants to spend their last night together in the same bed. They talk about how she will be able to live without him, and Sayu admits she doesn't want their time to end, but Yoshida reassures her she'll be fine. Sayu asks if they can sleep together to preserve their memories. Yoshida refuses, saying their time together as neither lovers nor family is already special enough. Sayu tearfully hugs him and Yoshida teases her for being a crybaby, so she jokingly asks if he wants to touch her chest, but he refuses again. Later, she falls asleep peacefully while Yoshida sits in a chair, quietly watching her. The next morning, Issa and Sayu drive Yoshida to the Hokkaido airport. At the terminal, Issa asks Sayu to go ahead so he can talk to Yoshida alone. Issa offers an envelope of money for travel expenses, but Yoshida refuses, saying Issa already bought his ticket. He suggests using the money to buy Sayu new clothes instead. Understanding, Issa says he likes his sister. Yoshida denies having romantic feelings for her, saying he prefers mature women, so Issa notes that if Yoshida hadn't gone out drinking that night months ago, they never would have met, and thanks him before they shake hands and part ways. At the gates, Yoshida tells Sayu about his discussion with her brother, and when the boarding announcement comes, he tries to say goodbye, but Sayu stops him. She says she's glad she ran away because otherwise, they never would have met. Yoshida says he's glad too, and Sayu confesses her love for him, but Yoshida reminds her that he likes older women. Bro deserves respect for sticking to his tastes. He says she's cute, but he doesn't feel the same way, so she asks if she might have a chance in the future, but he says he'd be too old by then. Instead, he tells her to put their memories in a box and start her new life, so she starts crying and says no box could hold the memories she has with him. Holding his hands, she promises they will meet again someday, so Yoshida agrees and walks off to board his plane. That evening, back at his apartment, Yoshida finds a note from Sayu along with one of her button-up shirts and a small recipe book. Deciding not to use the book, he tries cooking miso soup himself, but it tastes awful compared to hers, so he sheds a tear and sadly admits he's the one who's not okay, so he might be the real kid here. Sometime later at work, Mishima tells Yoshida she sent him the planning document and asks him to take a look at it even though it's really close to the deadline. Hashimoto can't believe Mishima's getting to lead such a big project and says that would have been impossible 2 years ago, and Yoshida mutters that all that time he spent mentoring her is finally paying off. She admits she has a different personality from what she did back then. Yoshida tells her to go for it, so she says she'll still come running to him as fast as she can if she runs into a problem. Goto tells them they did good work and asks if they're free tonight, since she thought they could go get a bite to eat to celebrate Mishima's new project. Yoshida apologetically says he's busy today, so she says she'll invite him out another time. Hashimoto asks Yoshida if he's meeting Asami again today, so he says she wants him to read her novel again. As he's walking, Asami says she's already there, so he tells her he's on his way back now too. As he's walking, he suddenly sees Sayu sitting at the same place he found her in before. Yoshida wipes off his tears and asks her what she's doing outside this late, so she says she has a home to go, but it's very far away, and smilingly asks him to let her stay at his place.